We've got a lovely question, and I want you to pay attention. I'm going to explain that to you from Taeto Filet. Now, this is regarding water issues that we experience in South Africa. Now, when we look at this question, now, as you can see, this question comes from an old examination paper, and it's question 4. Now, before I want to discuss this question, I need you to pay attention about your setup, about your question papers. Now, remember, we are not going to write June exam this year. It's going to fall away. Okay, so hopefully we'll finish the matric syllabus if we do go back to school next week. That we are going to finish the matric syllabus in a month's time. I think a month is doable to be able to do it. And then we're going to concentrate on the prelim exams. Now, keep in mind, the preliminary exams is just basically a spot exam that's basically very similar to your final exam. Now, if we look at this type of question, I'm going to answer in a bit from Tahetso. I just want to quickly show you the format of your final exam. So your final exam is going to consist of section A and section B. Okay. Now, section A consists of climate and geomorphology. And section B is going to consist of rural, urban settlement, and economic activities. Okay. Now here's the catch. So that's question 1, 2, 3, and 4. I've seen this throughout my career that grade 12 learners miss their distinctions or they fail because they chose the incorrect questions. Remember, you only need to do 3 questions. Your paper consists of out of 225 marks. Okay. So you only need to do 3 questions. You can't go and do all 4 questions. So you either do question 1 and 2 and then question 3 and 4, or you do 2, 3, and 4, or vice versa. Remember, so you can choose where you're the strongest. What content do you find easiest to explain or to study? Okay. In this case, this is economic traffic. Okay. So when we discuss economic South Africa, we look at the problems, the type of activities that gives us gain in South Africa, and we look at many problems that we experience. Okay. In this case, if you look at figure 4.4, and unfortunately, it's one of the biggest reasons why many of our schools why we did not open this week. It's because many of our schools are not even ready because they don't have running water. Now, unfortunately, it's quite scary to think we're on the 22nd century, we're in the year 2020, but still there's schools in rural areas that do not have running water. Okay, very scary to think about it. And that's the reason we didn't open this week, because some schools didn't have adequate water supply. But now we're not talking about schools, we're talking about a problem that we experienced, that we experienced. But there is still settlements in South Africa that doesn't have access to water from their houses. Okay, very scary to think about it. That's how unequal society is in South Africa. And this topic, if you look at this image, it states, water wheel by Wello is changing lives in rural areas. Now, as you can see, a water wheel has been created. It's like a patent. So someone came up with this idea because these ladies, these old ladies, even children, many of the times had to carry water from this. Maybe it might be a singular tap in a community where they need to go and fetch water. Now, obviously, you can imagine a liter of water is a kilogram. So you carrying buckets, how heavy is that? Especially for old ladies or young children. So this company came up with this beautiful solution, creating like a wheelbarrow effect. So you're basically filling your tank with water, water tank with water, and it's in circular shape, so it looks like a wheel, and you can basically work it like a lawnmower or even like a wheelbarrow just by pushing it forward, using gravity and momentum to carry the load. Makes it so much easier. But what is being shown over here is an injustice because there's still a shortage of water. The matter of fact that people need to go and collect water in rural areas. Okay, so that's what we're dealing with today. So if we look at the questions quickly, say it so. How was water transported in rural areas prior to the invention of the water wheel shown in figure 4.4? Like I've mentioned to you, I think we've all seen it. We've seen old ladies, women, children, men carrying water, go and fill it up with 2-liter bottles of water, even with buckets, okay, over long distances. So not only was it a time consuming to go and fetch water, but it was also uncomfortable to go and fetch it. Okay, these ladies carrying buckets of water on top of their heads. Okay, just to collect a basic need. So that's what they had, how they used to go and collect it. Okay, how has the water wheel by Wello changed access to water in rural areas? It didn't change access to water, it just made it easier. As you can see, the design of this water wheel makes it much easier to transport the water from point A to point B. So definitely it hasn't changed access to water, it's just has made the transportation of water much easier. Okay. What role can access to water in rural areas play in reducing poverty? Excellent question. Okay, now what do we know about rural areas? What defines a rural area? We've discussed this multiple times in the last couple of weeks. Okay, a rural area usually focuses on what? On primary activity. Now, when we look at primary activities, what do we look at? We look at farming. Now, immediately, there's your clue. Fishing. But we're going to focus on that first one. Fishing, forestry, and mining. Okay, so there you go. There's your clue. Farming. Now, how is it going to reduce poverty? Now, first of all, many small communities are subsistence farmers. What does it mean? Subsistence farmers do farm for themselves. To provide them with food security. Okay. So many of us rural communities are subsistence farmers. Okay, it's to provide for his family. He's not there to make a profit. So what does he do? He grows a couple of crops, millies over there. He's got cattle, he's got chickens. So he provides food security for himself and for his family. What does food security mean? To have enough daily food calorie intake per day, so you don't basically starve. So immediately, I mean, if we go back to our diagram, immediately giving more water, people access to water in rural areas, it means we can reduce poverty, meaning that they can provide for themselves and they can even plant crops, for example, to earn a little bit of extra cash, okay, by selling their produce. Okay. If you look at question 4.4.4, give a reason for the poor water infrastructure in rural areas in South Africa. Okay. Now, there's a couple of reasons for this. Now, first of all, grade 12s, unfortunately, we lack water. Okay. In grade 11, you've learned about the Lesotho Highlands Water Project. So basically what it is, we trade infrastructure with Lesotho for actual water. Okay. So Lesotho is an inbound country in South Africa, okay, and is situated on the escarpment. So it's a very nice catchment area for summer rainfall. Catchment area means it receives a lot of rain because it's a high-lying area. So what do we do with this water? Because it rains so much and it's a nice catchment area, they have a significant higher amount of rainfall than us. So what do? When they collect this water, we transfer this water mainly to the Vaal Dam here in Gauteng, on the outskirts of Gauteng. And this water provides us water for irrigation and also provides us with drinking water. So in return, what do we do for Lesotho? We provide them with infrastructure. Like, for instance, we build them roads, railways, do business with them, promote business opportunity. Okay, just for matter of fact of the water. So the reason why we experience, first of all, poor water infrastructure in rural areas is because we lack water. And unfortunately, because of rural-urban migration, right, not a lot of people are left in rural areas. So unfortunately, the maintenance of his infrastructure was left behind because many of these towns eventually turns into ghost towns. Now, if you just quickly look at 4.4.5, write a paragraph of 8 lines suggesting sustainable solutions to improve access to water in rural areas. Now, first of all, what can we do to improve access to water in rural areas? Now, I'm going to mention a few and I'm going to write them down. First of all, being sustainable is to preserve, to look after. Yeah, easiest one is educate. Educate the importance of water. Meaning to show people not to waste water. Unfortunately, a lot of water is being wasted on every single day, and it's quite precious. So school the people living in the rural areas the importance of it. Educate the water, how important water is, to save it, not to waste it. Another reason that we can add there, we must recycle the water. Okay. Now, I don't know if you can remember, with 2020 so bloody bad, with everything happening all around us, we were in a dire situation, especially the Western Cape. I think it was last year, 2019, 2018. They experienced a massive drought. Okay, so there was massive concerns. If you look at many of the dams, almost dried up, just silt left. Okay, so we experienced problems over there. So Cape Town, we're finding ways, desalination of water, to remove the salt out of the seawater to get fresh water. But there were so many tariffs and water restrictions. People were not allowed to flush the toilets. Or what they do is they save the shower water to wash the dishes with or to flush the toilets. So they recycled water to be more sustainable in case they want to run out. I mean, for instance, the restaurants, right? For instance, assumed that people only use certain toilets. Not all of the toilets were open. Okay, so you weren't allowed to go and water your plants, to wash your car. And by doing that, they saved a lot of water. So recycling water was one of the key areas to be more sustainable. Another solution we can find is build dams. Okay. Now, unfortunately, when we look at South Africa, we experience most of South Africa, basically except a small area, now those areas experience seasonal rainfall. So unfortunately, we only experience during a certain season our rainfall. So we need to save water for those seasons that we do not experience rainfall. So dams is a great option for saving water and be able to providing for those times in need, when we need it. Not only for ourselves, but also for irrigation purposes. Okay, then another solution, boreholes, for example. So we discussed it with the previous question. What's boreholes? Finding water, underground water. But very importantly, underground water, we need to use it sustainably, sustainable. And another, we need to have a look at pollution. Stop polluting our water. Okay. I always say the biggest problem in the world, 72% of the world is covered with water. But keep in mind, much of that water is salt water. And our biggest problem, keep in mind, with the hydrological cycle, we can't add more water, we can't remove water from the hydrological cycle. But we're gonna have a problem in the near distant future with drinking water. Because unfortunately, us as humankind, what do? We pollute our bloody water, so we make it undrinkable. Okay, so this question was asked by Tehetso. Thank you very much for this question. Like I said, this question usually we find in question number 4 when we look at economic activities in South Africa and social injustices, unfortunately, that we do find in South Africa, that some communities still don't have access to basic human rights. Okay, excellent question. Thank you, Tehetso.